Had any human beings been allowed to witness the great activity beside the old oak tree during that early spring, they would truly have been amazed. The whole length of the folly echoed with a constant hammering and sawing as Baldmoney and Sneezewort worked on the building of the boat. Around them, an army of small creatures stood guard, ready to give warning at the first sign of danger. On the high ground above the stream, a lonely rabbit kept watch beside a tree stump. Up in the old oak tree itself, Joe the Crow cocked a beady eye along the folly. It was under an old log, which lay in a bed of nettles, that the boat was gradually taking shape. And while Baldmoney and Sneezewort worked on its construction, their many friends made other preparations. Provisions were put aside, extra clothes, medicine, maps, hooks and lines for fishing, knives for hunting. But there was one creature who did not join in all the preparations. Day after day, Dodder sat on the beach sulking. He refused to talk to anyone. He thought the expedition an absolutely mad idea. It was likely that no one would survive the dangers, and he'd have nothing at all to do with it. But deep down inside, he was really rather jealous. He wished that he too was going, for he dared not think of a summer all alone. But he was very proud and stubborn, so he stayed put. It was in the first week of May that Baldmoney and Sneezewort downed tools and stood back to admire the boat, for at last she was complete. There she stood, the culmination of over a month's work. She looked a very smart and stream-worthy vessel with two large paddles cleverly wedged into wooden hubs. The paddles had been made secure with bent wire, otherwise she was made entirely of wood. You know, Sneezewort, we haven't thought of a name for her. You're right, and she must have a name, or all boats have a name. How about Mayfly? No, that's no good. Mayflies only live a few hours. How about Dragonfly, then? That's better, much better, answered Baldmoney. Right, now we've found a name, all we need to do is launch her. Within a few minutes, all their friends had gathered round the boat ready to push. Right, stand by, called out Baldmoney. He stood by the bows with a snail shell in his hand. It was filled with their best elderberry wine, made many, many years before. I name you Dragonfly, said Baldmoney in a very solemn voice. May you bring luck to all who journey in you. He smashed the shell against the boat. The wine ran down the woodwork, and everyone pushed as hard as they could. She's moving, called out Sneezewort. Only a little, but she's moving. It was when they reached the slope, however, that the boat suddenly picked up speed. Let go, cried Baldmoney. And they all did, all except Sneezewort. Look out, Sneezy! Baldmoney looked down in horror. Then slowly his fears subsided, and he began to laugh. They all began to laugh. Down in the Folly Brook, the Dragonfly was floating perfectly, while a very bedraggled Sneezewort clung half submerged to one of the paddles. Joe the Crow had watched the whole ceremony from his vantage point up on the old oak tree. Well, Sneezy, he called out, you needn't have worried. If the boat can survive a launching like that, it can survive anything. After poor Sneezewort had cleaned himself up and put on some dry clothes, both he and Baldmoney spent the rest of that evening paddling the dragonfly up and down the folly near the old oak tree. She handled beautifully in the calm water, and they found they could make good progress even against the current of the stream. "But what about the rapids above Moss Mill?" asked Sneezewort. "How are we going to get through that water?" "That's a point. I wonder just how rough the rapids are at this time of year." "Very rough indeed, I assure you." Baldmoney and Sneezewort looked around curiously. Who did that voice belong to? "Down here, you two, in the water." The gnomes peered over the edge of the boat. It was nearly dark by now, but they could just make out a small face in the stream. "Bless my soul, it's Watervole. Where did you come from?" "Oh, I've been following you for some time. I like your boat, but I tell you here and now you'll never get her through the rapids on your own." "Well, what do you suggest?" asked Baldmoney. I think a tow is the best thing. I'll get my family together and we'll pull you up, but take my advice. Leave it for a day or two till the water's a bit lower. You should start when the first wild iris bud splits, not a moment before." "Oh, right-o, Watervole. We'll do that, and thank you." "Not at all," answered the small creature. "And don't forget, wait till the wild iris splits." And with that, he vanished into the night. It was 2 days later, in the early hours of morning. A fine rain was falling all along the folly, making tiny rings on the brown water. And away behind the willows, the first flush of a red-eyed dawn was brightening the eastern sky. But though many creatures were still abed, not so the birds of the stream. They sang with joy their chorus in praise of another new day. The three gnomes had long since learned to sleep through the deafening chorus that came with the dawn, and inside the old oak they snored on, oblivious to all. Then came the knocking at the door. It was Baldmoney who at last opened the door and peered out sleepily into the half-light of early morning. Yes, well, what is it? Who's there?" "It's me, Baldmoney, Watervole. The iris bud up the stream has split. It's time you were off. Time to start on your expedition in search of Cloudberry." Later, and warm sunshine had dispelled the rain of early morning. The follies sparkled and glittered, the air was fresh and sweet, and by the old oak the wild creatures had gathered to wish luck to the departing gnomes, who were on board the dragonfly and ready to cast off. "I've only one regret," said Sneezewort rather sadly, "and that's leaving poor old Dodder behind. Are you sure he won't come with us?" "I've tried and tried," answered Baldmoney. "Last night when you were asleep, I talked to him for several hours, but it was no good. He's very stubborn, and his mind's made up." "Well, in that case," said Sneezewort, "we must push on without him." A hush fell over the eager crowd of well-wishers as Baldmoney stood up in the boat to address them. "My friends," he called, "thank you for all the help you've given us. May you all have a happy summer, and may we find Cloudberry. We hope to see you again in the autumn." And with that, the two gnomes bent to their paddles, and their small craft made its way out into the stream.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Good journey. Good luck. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
From under the old oak tree, however, Dodder also witnessed the occasion. But he was far from happy. The hot tears ran down his weathered old face, for this was the moment he had feared, the departure. From now on, he was all alone. Godspeed, Godspeed you both. Then, turning away, he lay down on his sleeping bag and sobbed. What now, he thought? What now?